Welcome to Network Spotlight. I'm Mikhail. Today I'm joined by Ícaro, legal counsel for NFTFY, co-founder of LegalBlocks with previous experience with Singularity Net. Ícaro has extensive knowledge and experience in the regulatory landscape of the blockchain industry, and I'm excited to hear his insights on the current state of affairs. With regulations around NFTs and cryptocurrencies constantly evolving, I'm thrilled to have Ícaro here to share his expertise. So make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and leave a comment with any questions or thoughts you may have. Let's dive right in. So Ícaro, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I think it's a much needed invitation because right now we're living in a world where there's really not much clarity around regulation. And I know that this conversation is probably just going to touch the tip of the iceberg. And we're not necessarily going to have answers, but all we can do is just look at what is transpiring and then make our
Mhm.
best guess as to what will happen next.
Exactly. That's what we can do as simple human survivors.
Absolutely. And the way that we met is fairly interesting because I believe it was like a LinkedIn post. I saw you post on something and I saw the word legal and I was like, I need to talk to that guy.
Yeah, that was on LinkedIn. I am doing legal uh, assessment and legal research and legal counseling on crypto since 2017. And I know that there's not so much lawyers in the world where you can speak about legal regulations and a good level of tech talks on crypto. For example, if you send me your smart contract, I can read something, I can understand what is going on with your smart contract. I can understand a lot of tech things. I can discuss you, let's say, a product design, and this hard to find on a lawyer. And on my point of view, it's definitely a must be in a crypto lawyer because the design of the product are it is strictly related with the crypto regulations. And probably was in some post of mine. I use specific words on LinkedIn to help the not this social network to spread my profile, and probably my strategy is working well because I found out a really good guy in the space like you.
Well, thank you. The feeling is definitely mutual. But you mentioned something interesting. You mentioned that it's very important from a legal perspective to understand the intricacies of a smart contract. Why do you think that is?
Because maybe it's too legal, but it's the first time in the human history that we have digital property, and it's because of blockchain and because the way of how smart contracts work. We can say that no, we some people probably say no, we already have digital property, like for example, property rights on intellectual rights on music, for example, but it is intellectual rights. Okay, it's not property rights itself because on the technology and there is no common sense to say that we have property rights on technology because you can copy and paste everything. And to understand the legal concept of digital property, we need to understand blockchain, how it works. We need to understand smart contracts, how a smart contract can be changed and how it cannot be changed. So it's deeply important to, as a lawyer in this crypto space, to understand the details of how a smart contract is working, because a lot of protocols say, oh, a lot of people say, oh, it's a smart contract, it's on blockchain, it's deployed, it's written on the stone, it's recorded forever. And it's not really exactly like that. Smart contracts can be changed based on how they were coded on the first deploy. So it's important to understand what is really being granted for the users, for the customers, for example, and for the community who is interacting with this smart contract. And as the industry goes evolving, it's a natural movement. It's important where it's important to the crypto protocols to do their research and to request overview of their smart contracts. But as we are getting more complex as an industry on overall, you need to have, for example, something that probably will begins to begin this year, to have legal opinions on smart contracts. So you have the audit, the tech audit industry that is different from the legal audit industry. On the tech, they will grant, okay, they will make sure that the smart contract works as it says on the white paper, for example. And the legal part of it will say, hey, based on the tech review, you have these rights. The smart contract works like that. And you, user, you have these rights. Or if you are an in-house lawyer for Web3 projects, you say to the project, okay, so if your smart contract is doing that, this one are your obligations. So you need to understand how a smart contract works. For example, you need to understand what is a withdrawal function, for example, or which functions could be rewrited and how they can be rewritten. It's deeply important. It's not a must be. I don't say that. I don't say that it's a must have. Sorry, I don't say that it's a must have, but it's good to have. And in the medium and long terms of age of our industry, I believe that at least on the head of the legal departments of Web3 projects, it will be a must have. You need to sit down with the tech teams and understand what they are talking about.
So you mentioned that from a legal perspective, you look at the smart contract and you say, hey, based on this technical analysis, you have these rights, X, Y, and Z. Are we at a place where the government is stating what those rights needs to be and what they can't be?
Not on the side of the government yet, but we can see right now we are in late March of 2023. And the first movement, we already saw it a few weeks ago, where in European Union, a Congress passes a bill saying that the smart contracts needs to have a kill switch, for example. And from a legal perspective, it's critical because the smart contract, they grant the smart contract, it's allow people to do things. And those things are rights. And if you have a kill switch, or let's say that we have a future on DeFi smart contract where you can trade future of Bitcoins, for example, of rapid Bitcoins in a DEX, future contracts. And then you have a kill switch. And somehow someone is allowed to access this kill switch and kill the smart contract. What will happen with the money of the people who are trading the futures of the smart contracts that was killed? No, it's really, really complicated. There are the people, the lawmakers in European Union. They say, okay, we need a kill switch because there are some smart contracts that they are dangerous. Okay, there are, but it's not the majority. We can see a lot of reports of a lot of companies who track criminal activities in blockchain, and these criminal activities, they are dropping off, they are reducing. So why do we really need as an industry a kill switch if we have a technological tool that can manage somehow financial values of the people? And if you are managing financial values of everyone, of anyone, you need to grant a certain level of rights, and having a kill switch, you just kill this level of rights too, you know.
Yeah, and I think it just goes back to the whole regulation versus decentralization, right? If you add a kill switch, you're essentially making it more centralized, which defeats the entire purpose of having that smart contract. So I understand the predicament that the government is in, but in general, I mean, is it safe to say that the European Union, Asia, they're a lot more further along from a regulatory standpoint than, say, United States?
Yes, it's true. It's common we hear in the general industry that we don't have a clear uh, regulation framework on crypto. It's somehow it's true, because but we have some places that we have more ideas on how this framework will be in the near future. For example, in Asia, we have Hong Kong that has somehow a good framework regulation on crypto. We have, for example, Dubai that have a really good framework regulation for crypto. We have Switzerland that have somehow a good regulation. On MiCA is being discussed on the European Union zone, and we have Brazil. A, we have here in Brazil a law that says the guidance of how the crypto market will be regulated, probably by our central bank. So the guidelines, the general idea of regulation is being discussed in some places. Some places, the general idea is already tangible. For example, Dubai, it's really tangible. You have specific license for NFT marketplaces. You have specific license for mining, blockchain mining activity. And by the other hand, for surprise of everyone, we have United States where we don't have any discussion at all. We have just the bit license in New York, and you guys can check out on Google and make your research. Maybe ChatGPT nowadays will help you too to understand the bit license and the history behind the bit license in New York. It's an interesting history. But in general, we don't have any discussion on crypto regulations on the United States. We have just SEC acting against crypto projects. Sometimes SEC is right. There are really crypto projects that are not following the regulations on the United States, but by the other hand, we have the SEC abusing of its power. And then we have CFTC beginning to put its foot in this discussion about regulation and etc. But it's not regulation itself. As we say, it's regulation by enforcement. And it's not healthy because you get these bodies, they get the actual financial and commodities market regulation and say, hey, based on this regulation, your project, your product, your service is somehow related with this topic, and you are not following the register rules, so you are not complying with the law, you are doing some, even sometimes some criminal activity. It's not good for the market, and I feel bad for it because here in South America we have a lot of influence from United States. People like it or not, we have a lot of influence. I think that it's a good influence because okay, it's better if you will be influenced by someone, you need to be influenced by the top tier people, and of course that having influence of one of top tier economy in the world is good for the country. But it's, for me at least, it's strange that the United States as a whole are standing its point on crypto regulation. We have important markets doing it, like European Union and UAE, but United States, no, they are just letting SEC and CFTC going against crypto projects, and it's sad, because there are crypto projects that they are making the job of SEC really easy. We have bad crypto projects, but we have a lot of good crypto projects too, and we cannot just mix all of them and say that they are all the same because they are using crypto. There are projects around the world, for example, that don't even use crypto. They just use blockchain as an infrastructure. They just use smart contract as an infrastructure to provide services. But they decided not to go to the United States because they just don't want problem. I have some clients from Europe and from Brazil. One specific guy, he developed something really, really good. If the people who are listening to us, they are use it in or have some knowledge on big corporations. A lot of big corporations, they use a software that is called the BPM, a business process management, where you can, inside of your company, you design your process and you follow this process inside of the software. But in our actual economy, it's complicated because one process of one company, in a lot of points, they are influenced by process of a client or for a service provider, and you cannot control it. And this guy developed a process, a BPM, blockchain based BPM, where you can integrate all the parties and all the process together. And it's only possible to do on blockchain because the database is decentralized and anyone can hack the BPM of each other. So we have a really high level of trust with all the players, and it's working really good in a lot of countries on the world. But when I say to this guy, hey, it's time to go to United States. You don't have just an MVP. You have a useful product where you have big industries using it. You have oil industry, steel industry, health industry. Go to United States. And he just say, man, I don't want to go to United States. My business is running really good in the countries with I don't have problems with regulation, and I just don't want to go to United States. And suddenly on my hotel, I receive a Wells notice, for example, or any kind of request of information from SEC. I don't even have crypto. I'm just using as a infrastructure, but I just don't want to have the risk to need to explain this to a government and official bodies. It's sad because where people say, "Oh, uh, uh, United States is missing its point." A lot of crypto companies are not going to United States, and it will be a loss of money, and it will not be a loss of money in the future. It's already been. Some projects they don't even have any kind of crypto risk. They don't trade financial instruments on the clothes of crypto, but they just don't want to run the risk. They don't need to run the risk, so they prefer not to go.
Yeah, I think this is a trend that unfortunately we will continue to see. Just the other day I was talking to the CMO of a specific ecosystem, and I asked him. I said, "Hey, what are some of the conferences that you plan on attending here in the near future?" And he said, "Well, we're really focused on Europe, specifically around builders, but we have no plans to go to the United States. We just don't want to." And that's not even to have a business there. That's just they don't even want to network there because they feel like a
Wow.
lot of times they'll be networking with builders that are in the United States, and they don't really want to deal with that. So unfortunately, I think that's something that we will continue to see unless something changes. And going
Mhm.
back to the SEC and the CFTC, I mean, are they? You hear them making headlines, but are they communicating with each other? Because I feel like they both say different things, but they're not really communicating with each other.
No, they don't. By the other hand, they sometimes they fight with each other. I don't know if people how much time your audience is involved within crypto, but in 2016, SEC had an investigation on Ethereum, and back in that time, the crypto industry as a whole, we don't have the term utility token so common as we have today. And then the SEC was investigating the Ethereum Foundation to understand if the Ether, the token Ether, was a security or not. And it was there they had a decision in 2016 where they formally stated Ethereum is not a security. It's not a financial instrument. It is a commodity that is used to pay the prices of the infrastructure of a really big and decentralized network. That was the conclusion. And then years later, we have the Ethereum moving to proof of stake. And some people on the SEC began to do interview and say, hey, now the Ethereum is proof of stake. We need to review our understanding because maybe now it is a security. No, it's not. And it's really, really strange because back in 2016, when SEC said, okay, it's not a security, it's a commodity, it's saying it's not on my business, it's on CFTC. And we know that SEC have more actions and is more active in the space than CFTC as a whole, as an history or overall history of the country. But back in 2016, SEC formally state that it's not on me, it's on CFTC. And CFTC just doesn't do anything related to it. And which was the first action on CFTC regarding to crypto, going behind Binance. going follow Binance on the trades of future, future trades, or future contract trades. And so these organs, they don't speak with each other. They just a few months ago we all saw a lot of fights between them where they was wanting to uh, enlarge their competency on the market. And no, they just don't talk with each other, and they are acting on their point of view with no collaboration. It would be good if they had collaboration, but no, they haven't. And it's not only in crypto. If people will check the overall situation on the financial market, in situations that outside crypto, it's not really clear who have the jurisdiction on specific situations. It's not common to have CFTC and SEC sit together and try to help each other, at least to understand where is the power of each one of those organs,
Is that the difference between what's happening in the United States and other nations? Is it we just have too many bodies that are, acting as the authority, whereas other
Mm,
nations have perhaps maybe a central authority and they're saying, hey, this is how it is, whether we like it or not, but at least a decision is made.
yes, it's happening. For example, here in Brazil, we have just one organ who decides about the securities, and futures. And our legislations here formally states that derivative contracts, they are securities. So, end of conversation. The law said so. The competency, the authority to regulate it is the Financial Market Authority. And by the other hand, for example, we have Europe when we have MiCA, and each country has your internal financial markets regulation. And MiCA manage these relationships in a way that probably it would be good to the United States do too. So MiCA say, hey, here's my general guidelines. Here is the minimum requirements to have a crypto license in the Europe zone. If one of these countries or one of the members want to add something that makes sense to the crypto market to wish to grant license, okay, you are allowed to do it. By the other hand, if any internal financial body already have some kind of regulation, and the local regulation is connected to the general regulation of MiCA, uh, these country specific, they don't need to change their process. They can do as they are doing right now, based the internal regulation are similar to MiCA. And it's happening, for example, in Malta. Malta have specific regulations on crypto, and it will not need it to be updated to adjust to MiCA. France has this situation too, and I believe Chypre is in Cyprus. Sorry, Cyprus is in the same situation. And MiCA already said in countries that don't have any kind of regulation at all about crypto, and just say, hey, you can adhere to my guidelines, and okay, you are good. And to avoid internal conflicts, that is something really similar, for example, that could happen in United States, because the states are a lot of autonomy on the federal regulation. MiCA said, if you are a state member and a crypto company is granted license in another state member, and this license is they are according to MiCA, they can provide their services in your country too. They don't need to request a license of you for you. They just need to say, hey, here is my MiCA license, or here is my local license issued by France, and it's allowed, it's next to MiCA, and it's granted, it's valid for more 2 years. So you need to allow me to provide my products and services. I believe that in United States situations where we have two organs, I believe that the better scenario would be a federal regulation, uh, and this federal regulation giving these guidelines that MiCA gives to their internal countries, that they are completely autonomous. But if they follow the general guide, they are okay. They don't need to make words or make another law, or update their internal process of requirement of license, etc. I think that, I don't know detail, but I think that it will be the first time in United States where we have a general federal law allowing states to adhere to it, providing a general guidance and a general process rules, and just saying to the states, hey state, for example, hey New York, state of New York, do you want to adhere? So okay, we sign a convenium, and your license, they are granted based on the federal regulation. And the same with Florida. Hey Florida, here is the general guidelines. If you want to adhere to it, you can grant your license like that. But if you want to spend your money, spend your time, spend your people developing your local regulation, okay, feel free. But the general guideline is here. The federal organs who trade informations are adhere to this regulation. I think that it will be a good scenario, because we have a lot of autonomy in each states of the United States. But this specific market, it can be really, really beneficial for all the country. So I think that a general guideline, a general regulation, which each member state could adhere to it, would be the better scenario in the United States.
Yeah, I think you're right. In terms of state to state, we're already seeing the difference in regulations, right? Like you compare New York to, say, the state of Texas when it comes to Bitcoin mining, or the
Mm-hmm.
recent news with the state of New York suing KuCoin for Ethereum being a security. I believe that's the one of the latest news that came out of that. So, I mean, having a regulation that is across the board very similar. I mean, I guess maybe in some ways having less autonomy could potentially be beneficial in regards to getting somewhere uh, with crypto
Yes,
regulation.
I think the point is the way that the message is delivered. Because is somehow related to marketing. Because if we go to this main member state and say, hey, would you accept to reduce your autonomy in this specific subject, probably we will have problems. They will not allow to do it. But if the approach is, hey, I have this idea, and this is a federal idea, and if everyone accept this idea, everyone will be benefited. Everyone will be winning. We can develop easiest ways for the crypto business all around the country. And if you all accept this idea, it will be a win-win for everyone. It's different to say, hey, would you accept to reduce your authority? In the end of the day, the same thing. They will be accepting to reduce their authority. But it's the way that the message is delivered is important, because, human beings, we have a lot of ego. And sometimes we put our ego in front of the benefit of everyone.
Can you think of any specific regulations that are almost like a double standard when you compare like the banking system to crypto regulation? Where if you're a bank, this specific regulation may not necessarily apply to you, but it applies for crypto. Or just some scenarios where you can see that there might be a double standard. Is there such a thing in your humble opinion?
I see that not in banking, but in financial market, we can have a double standard. One standard for the traditional and another standard for the crypto. Because, for example, one of the things that we have in the financial market is the financial market infrastructure. So we have the company who issues the security, the company who sells it, the company who is responsible for the trade, and the custodian, and another company to be the custodian. And in crypto, we don't need all of these guys. We can have just one, the issuer, because we have in the blockchain the custody and the registration and the liquidation of the negotiations. So maybe in the financial market, I see that it will be healthy to have a double standard because we don't have a lot of intermediaries to liquidate and to register the operation and to be the guardians of the assets. It's all in blockchain. The smart contracts are public. You can go there and check the operation. They are liquidated on chain. You can even have a market maker on chain, as we already have on the centralized exchanges and on DeFi services. So I think that in the traditional financial market, it will be interesting to have a double standard. In banking, I believe that maybe something related to CBDC. Here in Brazil, we are beginning to have a double standard because, for example, we have the Brazilian payment systems that allow traditional banks and fintechs to open accounts and credit and issue credit cards and etc. But in the general guidance of our CBDC, the central bank already said that the CBDC here will have two levels of CBDC. One issued by central bank, and the other level issued by the commercial banks and other financial institutions. And it is in the general guidelines, it said that the central bank can allow other companies, not financial institutions, to issue stablecoins. So on the banking sector, maybe something related to stablecoins, it's good to have a double standard because we have a really strong regulation on, for example, credit card issuance. For example, it's a really rough regulation and hard to follow up. But in crypto, if you are issuing, for example, a debit card on crypto and it's based on a CBDC, and you have the license to issue your CBDC accordingly to the central bank CBDC, I think that this license process could be easier for, let's say, stable coins of CBDC, because you just need to prove that you have the central bank CBDC backing your all operation, and it could be checked on real time with blockchain. So maybe it's something that it will happen in Brazil. And in Europe, I see the discussions going to the same path. But in Europe, they are discussing about three levels of CBDC. One issued by the central bank, one wholesale CBDC that it will be traded between the banks, and the market CBDC, the day-to-day CBDC, that it will be a stable coin backed on the wholesale. Here in Brazil, we have just the two levels, the market CBDC backed by central bank CBDC. In Europe, they are discussing intermediary level, maybe because they have a lot of autonomous countries inside of the block, makes sense for them. But here in Brazil, we will work really good with just two, and the United States, maybe just two will be good too.
We have a little bit less than 10 minutes left, but I wanted to also maybe highlight some of the regulations that are considered good, because I think when you look at the media, especially from like a crypto perspective, we tend to look at SEC, CFTC, and usually we just get a bad taste in our mouth, right? Anything regulation, we automatically think it's bad. But what are some of the really good regulations in place that truly are protecting us?
Well, I believe that nowadays Switzerland had a really good regulation, but it's very expensive to a crypto project to be based in Switzerland. For example, we have, for example, okay, the banking scenario in Switzerland, they are crypto friendly. Okay, but you go, for example, in some specific banks that they are crypto friendly, and you need to have $500,000 of deposit. It's impossible. That's the reason that we have just big players on the crypto space based there. For example, Ethereum Foundation. And by the other hand, I believe that Dubai nowadays is one of the better places to have the company, a crypto company. The regulation is really protective for crypto. The banking sector, they are learning how to deal with the crypto business. They are not so crypto friendly yet. For example, some banks, if you have your company incorporated, for example, in DMCC, that is a free zone who are crypto friendly. And you go to the bank and say, hey, my company is incorporated in DMCC, and I am, for example, a Bitcoin mining company. The bank will not open your corporate bank account so easily. But as the government knows it, you can have your offshore banking account. It's not a problem to them. If you prove to them, hey, here's my company, because when we receive a license in Dubai, within 6 months of the issuance of the license, you need to prove the social capital, the funds of the social capital, and you can prove with a banking from UAE or an offshore banking, because they know that the banks, they are not so friendly yet on crypto, despite the regulation. It's really good, really good. Uh, I believe that the general guidance here in Brazil is a really good general guidance, but we need to wait the specific regulation that it will be issued by the central bank. The regulation on MiCA, it's a really good regulation too. It's very extensive, but at least it's clear. All the rules are there. You just need to spend your time reading. At least for lawyers, they are not so complex to understand. The language is really clear. And for entrepreneurs, I believe that it is not so hard to understand too. The language is good. So now, today, I would say Switzerland, Dubai, MiCA when it will be approved, and probably Brazil, but we need to wait the regulation from our central bank.
Yeah, well, I mean, that I think that gives us some hope that there are some places in the world that are having a little bit more clarity on regulation. And uh, again, I personally believe that some regulation is needed, and so not all regulation is bad. We need that certain level of regulation for adoption. So,
Mm-hmm.
Ikao, I appreciate the perspective and the insight. I mean, you've got so much knowledge about
Thank
regulation
you.
that's global. So that was a very interesting perspective. Where can people contact you if they have any questions, or maybe they want to
Sure,
connect?
people can contact me on LinkedIn. My profile on LinkedIn, you can search for Ícaro Avelar, and you will easily find me on LinkedIn. In Twitter, the same name, Ícaro Avelar. And for Brazilian Portuguese content, on Ícaro Avelar on Instagram too. But on Instagram, only Brazilian Portuguese. On English, on LinkedIn, you can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter. And it's good you to have this idea of some regulation, because we need to be rational. The big money, they don't go where there is no clear rules. They don't go. And in some countries, it's beginning to happen. For example, here in Brazil, investment funds were allowed to invest their money directly on crypto. It was a small evolution. A few months ago, they was not allowed. And it's something that is being discussed around the world. And the crypto native, as I am, despite being a lawyer, I am a crypto native. Uh, and the idea of the crypto native is to be completely free in the states. They are not good and everything, and etc. But the big money, they just step in where there are clear rules. They will not just assume the risk of being sued or something related. So in the crypto industry, I think that it will be really good to have some level of regulation.
Well, we'll definitely have you back on once we get a little bit of development on the regulatory side. So thanks so
Sure,
much,
it will be a
Caro.
pleasure. You can count on me.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for joining the conversation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it too, man.